Hello, my name is Chris Carr, and I was grew up in New Albany. Although I was born in North Carolina, I've been here since I was 11 and a half, 12 years old. I moved here in the summer between the fifth grade and the sixth grade. Although I was very familiar with New Albany because my grandparents lived here and we visited every summer. So I would spend 2 weeks with my grandparents and my family would come as well. So sometimes I would ride with them and fly home, and sometimes I would fly here and then ride home with my family. So I've been coming to New Albany almost all my life, so it's very familiar to me. Although I've been in Florida for 30 years now, uh, New Albany is still where I grew up, especially during a lot of adolescent years when I was very impressionable. It was a great community to grow up in, and it still holds a special place in my heart. My grandparents were Cecil and Myrtle Carr. They have the big house on Highway 30 that is now the 1907 Events Gallery, which is so nice to see that the house has been fixed up because for so many years it was just dilapidated, or not dilapidated, but kind of going in downhill. But lots of memories from that house in the summer. Uh, a garden every summer, fishing in the pond, exploring the 30 acres that was behind the house. Lots of great memories, especially growing up here. Um, my creative journey began when I was 15. I got a guitar when I was 15 for Christmas and learned how to play. A couple of months of taking lessons, but then a lot of teaching myself. I've always been a person who just teaches myself what I want to know. Um, that's how photography came along. I just decided to start taking pictures while I traveled and wanted to find a way to turn a hobby into a passion. And over the years, I've been able to do that. Um, I've been able to take my photography instead of just taking pictures of landscapes and everything. I've been able to establish my own unique perspective to where I take pictures off the reflections of water and puddles of water. So I'm able to create these surrealistic compositions from the same thing that everybody looks at, just from a different perspective. I graduated in New Albany in 1991. Then I went to,
Okay.
to Northeast for about a year and a half, to where I was unsure about what I wanted to do in my life, like so many people growing up and at that stage in their life. So my dad worked for River Oaks Furniture Company, so he's like, okay, let's get you a job. So I went to work for a furniture company, and after about a year or so, I realized that I wanted more from my life than just working in a factory every day. So I went back to school, got a marketing degree from Northeast, and then soon after that, I moved away. Uh, for the summer, I moved to Murfreesboro, Tennessee, where my brother lived, and then at the end of the summer, I moved to Orlando to be with the musicians that I had been playing with before, um, and they all moved to Orlando. Although some of them have come back now. So I moved there, and that was 1996. After many years, I stopped being a musician and decided to go back to school and get a web design and graphic design degree. Still trying to pursue that creative passion I had. And then several years later, just from being a hobbyist of a photographer, I started seeing the reflections. At first, I didn't realize that I was doing that, but then looking back at my photos, my archive of photos, I realized that for several years I had randomly been shooting the reflections and did not even realize that myself. So I had one day where it really came to life, but it had really been growing in my head for a while. And once I recognized this perspective, I never looked back. I just started shooting water and reflections everywhere. And then a few years ago, I started learning to bring my own bottle of water and make my own puddles, because my biggest complaint was always that I could never find Mother Nature's puddles where I wanted them to be to get to the shots I wanted. After a while, you start doing something and your standards get sort of high. Your expectations are higher, so you want the quality of the work you're doing to be higher than you've done in the past. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years, and I've never been happier with myself and my creativity. And I really feel like I've gained some traction with, not only learning something, but understanding who I am as a person as well.
When you moved to Florida, what was your musical?
It was mostly rock and roll. I played guitar, but I also played the piano a little bit. After several years of learning guitar, I taught myself how to play the piano, which is not a hard transition once your fingers are sort of used to playing on an instrument. It's a little transition, but it's still the sort of same method of thinking and playing. So, musician, played guitar mostly. When once that band was no longer together, a few years later, I started another group, or was part of another group that was in Orlando, and in that band we all switched instruments. We all played. I played guitar, I played bass, I played piano. Just try to be more creative as a group and not just get stuck in one instrument each. That kept the variety alive for us. We all sang, we all played guitar, and it was quite an amazing experience to push yourself even more than you're used to in the past. Let's see, that was 96, and then probably was there doing music there for about 5 or 6 years before I went back to school to get more education. And I already had a marketing degree, so I wanted to work on something more. At that point, web design and graphic design were a big and up and coming industry, so I wanted to get into that so that not only could I keep working, but also keep my skills for myself honed so that I can use what I've learned in my own business, in my own life. No, 10 years ago, it just happened so my position got eliminated at the job I'd been at for almost a decade. And 2 weeks after the job was eliminated, I was accepted to an art show for my photography series. So to me, I took that as a sign as this is where I'm supposed to go next in my life. And so that was in January of 2015. And here it is 10 years later, and I'm still on that same path, and it's only continued to grow for me. Uh, it's been quite an amazing experience. First few years were very slow, trying to figure out which directions to go in and what options there were out there, because sometimes you don't know what things are available to you. You just know what you want to do, and you just kind of have to sort of dig in and just ride the path sometimes and see what comes about. Keep your options open, so to say.
So you're earning your living now as a photographer.
Yes. I do a lot of art shows around the country. I set up a tent outside. Sometimes I do gallery work, but I always have the mindset that while I'm traveling, I want to take new pictures of the places I visit and try to make artwork with them. I never know when I'm going to be in an area again, so I like to take full advantage of going out and making art in a city that may or may not come around for a few years or another decade. I never know, because I never know where my shows might take me in the next year, or where the shows might be at it as far as economically they might not be viable that year. Well, it's for me it's easy because I'm always looking to be creative. I'm always looking to make new work and to think forward. Like what am I going to be doing in the future? Sometimes I visit cities to make art because there's an event I want to do in the future. I've done that 2 or 3 years in advance, but in the past, sometimes it's just a city that maybe has a lot of cool stuff that looks really interesting, architecture. Maybe it has a lot of nature shots that could be really interesting. Maybe it has trees that we don't have in Florida. Like we have a lot of palm trees in Florida, but you go up north, you have a lot more hardwood trees that you don't see in the South. So sometimes it's all about color and texture. Sometimes it's all about just different styles of architecture that aren't normal in some other areas that I travel in. I almost have to take everything with me except for the kitchen sink because I am traveling. I have to make sure that I have everything I need, not only personally, but also artistically. I need to make sure that I have enough artwork to last and to fill up my booth at a show. Sometimes I need to make sure that I have supplies to make new artwork while I'm on the road. In the past, I have traveled with a small printer with me so that I can not only resupply my stock, but also maybe print something new that I just shot that the day before too. And at shows, people are impressed with that. That there's that much hustle that I went out yesterday and made this piece of artwork, and now today I've got it presented to them for them to see and appreciate. It's almost like being a part of a carnival or a fair. Uh, Everything that you see at an art show, our art, the tent that it's in, we take all of that with us. So we have to put it together at the beginning of the show. We also have to break it down and pack it up at the end of the show. So it's almost like a carnival life. Lots of traveling, lots of packing, but
Lots of weather.
a lot of weather. You have to pay attention to weather. I've become very honed to know when it's going to rain and not rain. When the wind blows, I know, okay, we're not okay. But you have to be used to weather. You have to be able to deal with weather as well. Sometimes it's messy out there. Sometimes it's hot. Sometimes it's really windy and stormy. But over time, you learn how to be prepared for those things. I never travel without a raincoat anymore. because you
You have
never
to
know when
protect
you're
your
getting ready.
artwork too.
That as well. You learn tricks, sometimes on your own, sometimes from other artists who you become friends with. It's almost a community out there. Uh, it's good to have those friends that you can swap war stories with at the end of the day, talking about an art show and talking about the people, the conversations you have with people, maybe the interesting people you meet at the show or the interesting things you see at a show. There's a variety of things that go on at art shows, and sometimes it's quite magical. My most successful was a show in Oklahoma City, and I think it was more successful because it was the longest show. It was a 6-day event, and most shows are 2 days, 3 days. Sometimes you'll have a 4-day event, and lots of them have been successful. Sometimes it's not about how much I've sold at a show to be successful. Sometimes it's about how much of a connection I've made in that city. How much do the people really appreciate the artwork that I'm doing? You know, everybody loves art, and a lot of times people like to talk about it and tell you how much they like it. But when you actually connect with people and they take home your artwork, then that's what's more successful. Is you know that you've made a connection. It's not just that they think it's really cool. It's that they really understand where you're coming from and what you're trying to accomplish and what you're presenting to them. They really appreciate, especially when you present to them stuff from their local city, even if I might not be from there. They really appreciate the fact that I've gone to that much trouble to learn about their city and try to capture it in my own perspective. My mom was a teacher, and so she's always nurtured creative spirit, and I think that that's more of a creative influence to me. Is that I learned early on that you not to limit yourself, to keep yourself not only honest but never doubt yourself. You know, if you say, "Oh, I can't do that," well, if you've never tried, you technically don't know if you can do it. You've just never tried to do it. So I try to keep that attitude in my adult life, that I never try to say I can't do something. I just haven't tried to do that yet. So when you have that mentality, it keeps yourself open to never doubting yourself. And that's very important as you go through your life. Um, and then as I grew up, I became more of a fan of surrealist artists, people who were able to capture something that was more than what was there, not just a picture, you know, not just a painting, but things that had deeper meanings to them, that had, the more you looked at them, the more details you started noticing. And that's what I try to do with my photography and with the reflections. I want them to be familiar when you look at them, but the more you look at them, the more things you start to notice. Oh, this is a little different, and oh, I never noticed this here, and you know, oh, I see the surface underneath that looks like something else. So that's what I try to keep alive in my photography. I want it to seem like there's more than just a picture.
Next.
Well, I'm always pushing the photography. I'm always pushing the reflections, making my own puddles. I feel like that I'm able to, to shoot anything I want to these days. I'm not limited by the rain puddles that I find. I'm not limited to one angle of a position. I'm able to shoot multiple angles of one object. I'm able to shoot it on different surfaces, because surface color makes a huge difference in what I do. Uh, for me, I've been learning watercolor lately, and I think that helps. That's nice because I'm able to step out of my normal photography brain and try something new. Watercolor is very minimalistic and it's not very forgiving, so it's nice to working something that's a little more delicate than the puddles. The puddles are easy to work with for me because I've done it for so long. But watercolor is a little more minimal, so it makes me slow down a little bit sometimes and still think about what I'm doing. It'll help me see different angles to take pictures, because I'm when you shoot for taking when you take a picture to paint from, it's not the same as just taking a picture to make a piece of art out of. So it makes me look at a little different. It's already made me look at my photography a little bit different along the way, because there's just a different way that you're wanting to capture things when you want to paint from something, as opposed to when you're just shooting something to make it into a single piece. Plus, they're both water, so maybe that's what it is. I'm just always drawn to the water, the reflection, or just using the water itself, or just the way the water makes everything a little more interesting when you see it on paper. It it blends a little differently. It's not just perfectly straight. It's a little mystery to it. I have a show in Raleigh later this month that I'm on the wait list for, and in Pittsburgh in early June that I'm on the wait list for. And so far, I haven't applied for anything else in the summer. Right now, I'm looking at shows in the fall. Come back up for maybe the show in Tuscaloosa, Kentucky, Folk Art Festival, and River Arts Festival in Memphis are both really good fall shows. And maybe Pensacola. It's a good one in early November. That's a really good show as well. Lots of great artists at that one. I don't feel it is as much as it was when I first moved there. We have Full Sail there, which is a school for not only musicians but for engineers. A lot more game design, a lot more video uh, production. So I feel like that it's kind of shifted away from being as much as starting to become a musical city like it was when I moved there. Um, and really, being on the road all the time, I haven't gone out to listen to a lot of the new bands that are out there, not locally anyway. I still keep up with musicians nationwide because that creative spirit. I want to always have new music in my life. I want to have new inspiration. Um, but it was a great place to move to and kind of start growing up as a young adult and figure out where I wanted to go in my life. It's quite a melting pot there, not only culturally but food wise, and being such a lover of food that it's great to have such variety of food when I at my fingertips all the time. Uh, well, Salvador Dali's always been a great one. I'm not a painter, but his work has just always just had so much more depth than just what's at the surface level. Uh, One photographer that I really love was Jerry Olsman. He's a photographer who would mix photos in the dark room and would go beyond just taking a picture. He would blend a picture of a house and a tree stump so that it looked like the house was growing out of the top of the old tree. So he was doing things that we do with Photoshop now before there was ever a computer to do Photoshop with or Photoshop in general. So he was seeing these things in the dark room back in the 60s and the 70s. And his work just still continues to amaze me that he was able to create these compositions back in those days just from what he saw in his head or what he wanted to see on paper when he was done. Now, I've never developed in the dark room. I hope that doesn't count against me as a photographer. I started as a film photographer, but I switched to digital because it was a better learning tool for me. When you have a digital camera, you have a screen on there and you can see your results right away. If you shoot film, you really have to keep a lot of detailed notes in order to recreate something you did right. And for me, taking notes in the field was always secondary because I'm too busy looking to see where's the next shot, where's the next angle of what I want to take a picture of. So shooting digital was a quicker learning tool, but it's also helped me shoot more pictures and learn what I was doing quicker and remember that in the future. Kind of make mental notes as to, okay, this worked, this didn't work. Let's try this and again. Let's not do this again.
What instrument? You said you play guitar.
Yep, I started on guitar, but also learned piano. And to be honest, my mom's dad could pick up and play any instrument, and I've sort of gotten that talent from him to where I could listen by ear and learn. Now, the only instrument I never was able to successfully do was a violin. That's a very precise instrument. To me, it sounded like I was trying to kill a cat. But most any instrument I can pick up and learn pretty quickly. Most stringed instruments, at least, and piano, organ, I guess any of those with ivory as well. I've always been a fan of all styles of music. I kind of bounce around. My musical selection is usually my phone has all my music on it. I usually live life on shuffle because I don't usually listen to the same song or same band 2 songs in a row. I like to just have that much variety in my life. Kind of like when I eat food, I like to have something different almost every day because I don't like to eat the same thing all the time. Not that I won't repeat recipes, but I like to have a good variety in my life. Orlando's home now, but this is the home I came from. This is where This is the home for the most impressionable years of my life, I believe, and I still say that it's my home from my adolescent years, my years where I really grew a lot, and really was um, helped become the person I am now. I think it helped set that foundation for me. so that going forward I could always keep that in mind and never stray too far from that. Don't doubt yourself. Just always give yourself credit to be able to learn something. We're all terrible at things when we start. The only way we get better is by continuing to show up and try to get better. Uh, and doubting yourself is always the worst thing, because if you doubt yourself, you fail before you even show up. And so I think that's a huge thing that folks should remember, younger folks, is that we're all amateur. The more we do it, the better we get. Some things we're going to get better at, some things we're not going to get better at, but it's always about just showing up and being present and trying to do more, trying to do things that get you out of your comfort zone. And maybe that's why I am the way I am, is because I get out of my comfort zone all the time. I like my routines, but I also like to push my boundaries. I like to push myself to see where am I going to end up if I try this. Uh, I'm not a risk taker as far as physically. I don't try to, oh, I can jump off a cliff, I can do this. But as far as creatively, I'm a huge risk taker.